At 3 a.m., an email from the real estate agent arrived. Mrs. Walker, there seems to be some confusion. Your husband claims you've agreed to sell the house, but we need your signature to move forward with the closing. I stared at my phone, the darkness of our kitchen enveloping me, a kitchen I designed with hand-painted tiles and an herb garden window. Unbeknownst to my husband Mark, who thought I was asleep upstairs, I had been aware of his nocturnal plotting for months. My name is Rebecca Walker, and after 15 years of marriage, Mark was about to face the consequences of underestimating me. The signs had been there for 6 months. Initially, they were subtle. Mark working late more often, odd charges on our credit card, and hushed calls that stopped the moment I appeared. Gradually, Mark's demeanor changed. Previously proud of my cooking, he began criticizing each dish, remarked my clothing as outdated, and dismissed my passions as mundane. What could have been mistaken for a midlife crisis soon became clear with a $122,000 Cartier receipt dated merely 3 days after he insisted on budget cuts and canceling our anniversary trip. The bracelet was not meant for me. This discovery led to deeper probing. Bank statements displaying hefty cash withdrawals, hotel charges in cities where he claimed to have business, and lately, emails from his secret account discussing selling our home. Becky. Mark's voice called from upstairs. Are you coming back to bed? Just getting some water, I replied steadily. Be right up. I shut my laptop silently, my mind racing. This wasn't merely a house to me. It was my dream abode, meticulously renovated over 3 years, each room a testament to my work as an interior designer.
Now,
Mark was attempting to sell it to support his affair with a woman young enough to be our daughter. However, he remained oblivious to the fact that I had been 10 steps ahead. The following morning, I saw Mark leave for work, briefcase in hand, kissing me goodbye, as though nothing was amiss. As soon as his car turned the corner, I called my lawyer, Sarah. He's making his move, I informed her as she answered. Got an email from a real estate agent last night. Perfect, Sarah replied, papers shuffling audible in the background. Everything's set on our end. Are you sure you want to wait? We could confront him now. I thought about the mountain of evidence. Screenshots of messages to his girlfriend Jessica, a 23-year-old yoga instructor. Records of our money he was siphoning, feigned business trips for hidden romantic escapades. Timing was crucial. No, I said decidedly. Let him believe his victory is certain. I want to witness his realization when the truth unfolds. After hanging up the call, I wandered through our home, fondly tracing the meticulously painted walls, recalling the endless hours spent perfecting each room. Mark had once mocked my meticulous attention to detail, then was calling me obsessive, and suddenly it made sense that he had never valued any of it. My phone buzzed with a text from Lauren, my closest friend. She'd just seen Mark at that newbie downtown, and he wasn't alone. I asked her to send a picture, even though I already knew what I'd see. There he was, sitting opposite Jessica, her bleached blonde hair shining under the sunlight as she laughed at something he said. A Cartier bracelet sparkled on her wrist. Thanks, I texted back. Keep me informed. That evening, Mark came home later than usual, reeking of wine and expensive perfume. He didn't even notice I'd rearranged my home office, securing important documents in a safer place. He was too engrossed in his phone, probably texting Jessica. Busy day? I inquired while serving the dinner I had prepared, his favorite pot roast with roasted potatoes. Yeah, big client meeting, he mumbled without looking up. We need to talk about the house, Becky, he continued while shuffling food around his plate. I kept my face neutral, listening. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe it's time for a change. This place is too big for us. And the market's good right now. You want to sell? I asked, making my voice sound timid, uncertain about his expectations. He launched into a speech he'd clearly rehearsed, about downsizing and investing in new opportunities, searching for something more practical. I nodded at the right moments, but my mind was racing ahead, contemplating the future. I've actually spoken to a few agents, he confessed, observing my reaction, just to get a sense of the market. I forced tears into my eyes. It was a skill I'd picked up during my college theater days. But this is our home, I protested. We've put so much effort into it. He reached across the table, patting my hand in a condescending way. Sometimes, honey, we have to make hard decisions. Trust me, I pulled away, rushing from the table like the emotional, irrational wife he assumed I was. In the bedroom, I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. He's making his pitch now. Time to move to phase 2. The following week flew by in a whirlwind of activity, all meticulously hidden from Mark. While he believed I was visiting design clients, I was actually meeting with financial advisors, documenting his betrayal, and establishing my own security net. Lauren kept me updated on Mark's actions, a lunch date with Jessica, trips to upscale jewelry stores, a suspicious visit to a luxury car dealership. He was spending money lavishly, likely making grand promises to Jessica. Then came the email I had been waiting for. Mark had found a buyer for a house, a cash offer well above market value. He forwarded me the details with a note. This is a great opportunity. Honey, we need to move quickly. I showed the email to Sarah, who smiled grimly. He really thinks you'll sign everything without reviewing the details? He never believed I could grasp complex financial matters, I replied, considering all the times he'd dismissed my questions about investments. That's about to change. That night, Mark was unusually attentive, bringing home my preferred wine and suggesting we dine on the patio. I knew what was coming, the hard sell, the manipulations, the cleverly constructed argument. He refilled my wine glass and began presenting arguments to convince me to sell our house, stating that the buyers needed a response by Friday. They're offering cash, Becky, he insisted. We'd be foolish to let this opportunity slip away. I took a sip of wine, observing his face in the dimming light, the face I had seen every morning for 15 years, now appearing unfamiliar, hardened, and etched with deceit. You're right, I said quietly. We would be unwise. His eyes brightened with triumph, oblivious to the steely resolve in my voice. I'll prepare the documents tomorrow. We just need your signature. No, I interrupted decisively. We'd be foolish to miss this chance to reveal your actions. His face turned pale. What do you mean? I unveiled my phone, displaying the folder labeled Mark's Secret Life. Shall we begin with the card for Jessica's bracelet, or perhaps the hotel bills? Or better yet, the funds you've been transferring to your private account, thinking I wouldn't notice. He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. You've been spying on me? No, Mark, I corrected. I've been safeguarding myself. Did you really think I'd let you sell our home to fuel your midlife crisis without protest? The ensuing hours were tumultuous, with Mark oscillating between anger and begging, making threats and empty promises, while I remained firm, holding all the leverage. Eventually, he stormed out at midnight, slamming the door. I sent a final text to Sarah. He knows. Prepare for the endgame. The next morning, I awoke to 37 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic messages from Mark. You're making a huge mistake. Let's discuss this. Don't do anything reckless, Becky. The buyers won't wait forever. I smiled, making coffee in the kitchen I had meticulously designed. Mark had always underestimated me, considering me nothing more than a decorative housewife whose sole talent was making things look pretty. He seemed to forget that successful interior design requires more than an eye for aesthetics. It demands business acumen, attention to detail, and most importantly, the ability to read people. My phone rang once more, Mark's number. This time, I answered. The buyer pulled out. He announced bluntly, Your little outburst cost us the best offer we could ever receive. No, Mark, I replied smoothly. You lost the most valuable thing you ever had. The house was merely the final straw. He attempted to argue, but I cut him off. Check your email. I heard his breath catch as he opened the message from my lawyer, detailing every transaction he'd made with our joint funds over the past year, every hotel stay, every gift for Jessica, and, crucially, the legal document securing an injunction that prevents the sale of our house without court approval. You can't do this, he sputtered. I've already done it. Oh, and Mark. Jessica called me this morning. The silence was palpable. She was quite shocked to learn we're still married. Apparently, you told her we divorced 2 years ago, which is why she never met any of your friends or family. At last, I had achieved the moment I'd been waiting for. 2 days ago, I met with Jessica to reveal the extent of Mark's deceit and manipulations. She is not foolish, despite her youth, and when she saw how Mark had been depleting our retirement savings on her, she was appalled. Did you really think she would contribute to ruining someone's life? I asked Mark. Through the phone, I heard the unmistakable sound of something breaking, likely triggered by Mark's infamous temper. You've destroyed everything, he yelled, to which I calmly replied, No, Mark. You did that on your own. I simply ensured that I wouldn't be dragged down with you. After I ended the call, I wandered through what was now solely my home, touching the walls, the furniture, remnants of a life Mark was willing to obliterate for a fleeting ambition. Later that day, Lauren visited with wine and a shoulder to lean on. How are you managing? She asked. As we settled with our glasses of wine on my preferred window seat, I couldn't help but reflect, a year ago, this would have destroyed me. It's interesting how things change. I pondered over the Cartier receipt that marked the shift, a reminder of my worth beyond what Mark perceived. As soon as I stopped trying to mend our marriage and focused on my own preservation, everything clicked into place. My phone then buzzed with an email from Sarah regarding the divorce. Evidently, Mark's asset-hiding schemes had backfired dramatically, prompting a comprehensive audit of his finances. Given the clear evidence of financial misconduct, we are in a strong position to claim not just the house but a substantial share of all marital assets, Sarah informed me. I replied with a succinct, yes. The following weeks engulfed us in a whirlwind of legal battles and revelations. Mark's meticulously built facade crumbled bit by bit as his company initiated an investigation into his expense reports, uncovering years of dubious transactions. Jessica, feeling deceived and upset, supplied her own documentation against him. Throughout the turmoil, I maintained my focus on my design business, even securing a significant project to renovate a historic hotel. This client specifically sought my expertise after seeing our home featured in a design magazine, the same house Mark almost sold without my knowledge. One evening, as I meticulously reviewed renovation plans in my home office, the doorbell rang. Mark, looking disheveled and defeated, was at the door. Can we talk? His voice was rough, weary. I allowed him in and watched as he observed the transformations I'd made to our home, the new art pieces, the reimagined layout, every vestige of his touch removed. I made a mistake, Becky, he admitted, slumping into a chair. Jessica is gone. The company has suspended me during their investigation, and my lawyer warns I might face criminal charges for the financial issues. What did you expect? I questioned. That you could strip us of our future, and I'd simply concede? He ran his fingers through his graying hair, revealing his confused thoughts. I suppose I believed I deserved more, that you would be lost without me. I chuckled, genuinely entertained. That's always been your problem. Once finalized, the divorce settlement arrived 3 months later. I retained the house, my business, and most of our assets. Mark's financial missteps had exacted a heavy toll on him both in the settlement and his career. Jessica, to her credit, had transformed her life. She returned the bracelet and other gifts, using the funds to establish her own yoga studio. She even hired me to design the space. I'm sorry, she expressed during our initial meeting about the design. I never intended to hurt anyone. I genuinely thought you were divorced. We both learned some difficult lessons, I replied. The crucial thing is how we move on afterward. A year from that evening when I received the real estate agent's email, I found myself in my garden celebrating. My design business had grown with 3 new designers and a commercial department. Our historic hotel renovation had garnered awards, leading to more prestigious projects. As my friends and colleagues cheered, Lauren raised her glass in a toast to new beginnings. Surveying the home I'd fought to keep, the business I'd built, and the life I'd reclaimed, my phone buzzed with a message from Mark's sister. He's living in a small apartment now. working an entry-level job, constantly saying he should have valued what he had. I didn't reply. Mark's regrets were no longer my problem. Instead, I turned to my guests, raising my glass. Know your worth, and never let anyone make you forget it. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat in my garden, listening to the fountain I installed where Mark's prized grill once stood. The stars shone brightly above, the air filled with the scent of jasmine I planted last spring. My phone lit up with an email from a new client requesting a consultation. Life moved forward, presenting new opportunities, challenges, and chances to prove my capabilities. Mark believed that selling our house would fund his new life. Instead, his betrayal liberated me to create something far greater than I ever imagined. Sometimes losing what you think you need makes way for everything you deserve. I touched the warm stones of the house, my house, sensing the strength of its foundation beneath my fingers. Like me, it had weathered storms and emerged stronger. Every room now told a story, not of what was lost, but what was gained when I finally stood up for myself. The next morning was packed with 3 client meetings, 2 project reviews, and a consultation with a potential investor interested in expanding my business nationally. Mark's attempts to undermine me had only shown how much I could achieve independently. Glancing in the mirror while preparing for my day, I saw a woman who had turned betrayal into triumph, pain into power. The house he tried to sell had become the emblem of my independence, and the life he sought to ruin had grown into something far beyond what his narrow vision could conceive. In the end, success is the best revenge, especially when you succeed in ways your betrayer never imagined possible.